I did want to introduce myself, Kata Lemon, president and co-owner of Redpoint Media, and Sirang Asha, who is the senior editor of Avenue Magazine and sort of heads up our Top 40 Under 40 team. Top 40 Under 40 is a year-round undertaking for us at Redpoint. The nominations open the day that we launch the class, so it is something that's going all year long. So if you're in this event, you are probably here to find out more about how to write a very good nomination package. So the two steps of the nomination are someone gets nominated, then they'll receive the second half of the package, which is you fill it out yourself. So I did want to start by thanking Mount Royal University. Mount Royal has come on as a sponsor for Top 40 Under 40 for the class of 2025. We're exceptionally excited to have them as our sponsor. And they are the hosts of this particular workshop. This isn't something that we've done in the past, and we're very happy that Mount Royal encouraged us to offer this today. In addition to Mount Royal, our other sponsors of the Top 40 Under 40 for 2025 are the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, Oxford Properties Group, Churco Media Design, and Global Television. So I want to thank the sponsors. Without their support, we really can't make this whole thing happen. As you'll hear, it's quite an undertaking. So what we're going to run through today, just quickly with you, is, now I've lost my agenda, is an overview of the Top 40 Under 40 selection process. So basically how we do the selection from top to bottom, a review of the FAQ and rules, a review of the questions that are in the form that you will have received and what we look for in the judging process. Then some common errors, mistakes, and problems that people make when they're filling out the Top 40 Under 40 form. And finally, Q&A from anybody who's here. As I mentioned, as we go, if you have a question about what we're saying at the moment, please feel free to put it in the chat. We'll try to address things as we go. But then at the end, we will have a sort of follow-up Q&A for anything that's either been you felt you didn't understand or was missing, or anything that we can fill in and help you with, including particular questions that you might have about your own application. So in terms of the actual selection process, the way the process starts is we have nominations from the public. And this is really a very easy nomination process, that first part. So anybody can nominate anybody else. And really the only thing we ask them for is their own contact information, the contact information of their nominee, and a general statement of why they think that nominee should be considered. The rest of the information is filled in by the nominee themselves. So all the questions about confirming age, the background of their job and career, and any community work that they do, as well as any other reference letters that we ask for or reference contacts that we ask for, that's all asked of the nominee. So the nominator, we try to really lower what were our expectations for the nominator to make it really easy and to make sure that we're getting the broadest possible number of people and from a variety of communities. So we're really not stopping nominators because they feel like it's a really hard thing to fill out. We often have found as well, nominators don't have that information at their fingertips, whereas the nominee knows, well, where did they go to school and what has been their career history and how many hours did they volunteer? That's information that the nominator knows, or the nominee rather, knows about themselves, but that the nominator would have to do a lot of work to get that information. So then the second part is once we get the nomination in, we send that nominee basically it's a SurveyMonkey link that asks them to fill out that second part of the nomination. And this both confirms that they want to be considered for Top 40 Under 40 and asks them all those questions. So we will run through the specific questions in the form and what we look for in the judging process. The nominations close at the end of March this year, but the nominees have until the 11th of April to fill out the second part. So they have a little bit more time. So that second form is due at the latest by April 11th. Once we get all the nominations in, we then go through the process of narrowing it down. So some years we get upwards of 500 completed nomination forms. We narrow it down from those 500 down to about 70 applications that then go to our judging panel. Our judges are selected primarily from amongst our alumni, so people who have been featured in the Top 40 Under 40 in the past. 2025 will be our 27th year of doing the Top 40 Under 40 program in Calgary. So we have quite a broad range of people to choose from for our judging panel. We try to ensure that the judges represent both a diversity of industry, a background, and just interest in the city. So we try to ensure that there's always somebody who works in finance, partly because I don't know anything about finance. So it's always really helpful to have someone who knows that field. Somebody from the field of law, somebody from medicine. We always ensure that we have someone who works in the arts, because again, that is a very different field of endeavor than something like research or teaching or law or finance. And we often try to find somebody who works in tech. So what we're really looking for on the judging panel is that we have people who can say something about the industry so that we know when we're looking at the nominees, has this person really achieved something exceptional, or is this sort of what's expected within this field? We get those judges that shortlisted package, so they will receive the nomination forms from each of the nominees that are shortlisted. Now, the caveat is, if you are too verbose, if you write too much, we may edit down for length so that we are giving the judges something that they can handle, that they can actually get into. So one thing to make sure is that you don't repeat yourself too much, because we might cut that out. So you want to make sure that you try to keep things as tight as possible. Then we send the judges those forms. What they're looking for is really who is, out of this short list, who's the most impressive? Who are the really interesting stories? Who is moving Calgary forward through their work, through their volunteering, through their community engagement? They then help us narrow that down to those final 40 who are selected. Now, that's not always the end of the story. We then also do, or sometimes at the same time, we're doing background checks and reference checks. So within the forms, we're going to ask for community and work references, and we are going to contact each of those people that's given as a reference and confirm any information that they need to be able to confirm. Griffin has asked in that endeavor and that need to be writing not too much. There is a suggested word count on each question. But again, what we would recommend is, if there's an area where you just don't have a lot to say, don't feel that you need to fill it in and take up that whole word count. This is certainly not one of those areas where, like the final year exam questions where it looks like you get, the more words you put in there, the higher your mark. That's not the case here. And certainly we will either edit those down, or the judges will kind of be like, oh, this person's just kind of said the same thing over and over and over. So just make sure that it will have a word count limit within it. That is a hard cap, but think for yourself as well. Do I need to say this? How can I make this tighter? Keep in mind the judges are going to be getting, hopefully, your nomination along with 69 other nominations. If yours is 5 pages long and they're like, oh, this is just going through this, you want to make the judges feel happy to read your nomination. In terms of the community person, do they have to be from Calgary or the community of the person's work? That's really up to you. What we're looking for is somebody who can confirm the things that you've said in your nomination package. So that's really what we're looking for there. So once we've gone through those, if no red flags have been raised on the selections that the judges have made, then those people then go on to the final sort of steps. The only things that kind of knock somebody out after that is if they're unavailable. So every once in a while, we've had a top 40 under 40 who is simply out of the country for the entire time that we're going to be doing the story. If you're out of the country and we can't get the photo and we can't do the story, you can't be in the magazine. That's just kind of one of those logistic problems where it's just like, well, we hope you're under 39 that year then. The other thing that can happen and has unfortunately happened is that sometimes somebody loses their job, their business goes under. We really hate to see that happen. But again, when we're looking at top 40, if somebody, typically they withdraw their candidacy if that happens. But if somebody's business goes under, typically they don't want to be in the top 40 4 months later. Some of these questions we'll answer kind of as we go. So again, thank you for putting your questions into the chat. The question about will we know the judges, you won't know who the judges are. We don't necessarily keep it top secret, but we don't release those names until the issue comes out. And in terms of knowing whether your applications gets forwarded to the judges, no, you won't know that. You will know if you have not been selected. You will hear from us by August. The SurveyMonkey, we try to send those out daily between now and the end of the nomination process. If you have not received a SurveyMonkey link from us, but you know that you have been nominated, the first thing is to check your spam folder. And then the second thing is to contact us directly. So you can contact me at klemon@redpointmedia.ca, or you can contact Searing Asha at tleba, L-E-B-A, at redpointmedia.ca, and we're happy to help you out. We will give you just a general link, but we can also, I will say that some spam filters do kind of catch that SurveyMonkey link, the initial one that's sent, but please feel free to get in touch with us if you haven't received it. So then we go through the whole process of writing the stories, doing the photos, preparing the magazine, and then preparing the event. The event itself is scheduled this year for November 19th and will take place at the Bella Concert Hall at Mount Royal University, which we are very, very excited about. Now I'm going to pass things over to Searing Asha to talk a little bit about the frequently asked questions and the rules and regulations for the top 40 under 40.
Thanks, Kata. Hi, everyone. And if you joined after we did our intros, I'm Searing Asha, the senior editor at Avenue Magazine. So a lot of what Kata talked about in the process for top 40 might answer some of the frequent questions that you have. But in case they didn't, we do have a portion of the website, top40under40.com/FAQ, which I'll put into the chat. And I'm actually just going to go through some of these questions because they really are the frequently asked questions that we get. So this is actually, Kata was just talking about this. You receive an email saying that you're nominated. What do you do? If you have not received another email with the longer nominee acceptance form, the first thing you do is check your spam filters, especially if you're somebody who has been nominated with an email address either from a company or especially from a university. The spam filters through institutions are really, really strict. So oftentimes your nominee form will get lost in there. Again, if you still don't find it or it didn't get sent to you, you can just reach out to myself or Kata directly, and we can actually send you a URL to the form. What kind of information do you need to fill out the nominee acceptance form? So the nominee acceptance form, it looks a little long, but like Kata said, you fill it out to the best of your ability, and you also do want to try and keep it concise. For example, we have I think over 800 just nominations already this year, and it hasn't even closed. And so then those are people who are going to fill out a nominee acceptance form. So we'll have hundreds and hundreds to go through. So I would say definitely keep things concise when you can. The nominee acceptance form, it starts off with demographic questions, things like, of course, your name, your age, your birth date. We do ask now that, would you be willing to provide your license if we need to confirm your birth date, confirming the ages. Again, you do need to be over 18 and under 40 as of November 1st, 2025. Just a quick note on the demographic questions as well. A lot of the demographic questions are data that we keep for ourselves. These things do not get shared with the judges. So what we're sending in the judges package is the more contextual questions that you fill out in your nominee form. So when we're getting down to that, our favorite question and probably the hardest question is the elevator pitch. So we do try and ask everybody to start off in 100 words or less, just to tell us why you should be a top 40 under 40, why you think you were nominated, what are we looking for, what do you think you have to offer. And we're also going to go through the entire form and kind of what we look for in each response. So I won't do it all here, but just to give you an idea of that, you're going to do demographics, you're going to do an elevator pitch, you're going to have a chance to have specific questions talking about work, community contributions, volunteer opportunities. You will have a place to provide references for those different spheres of your life as well. And then, of course, we have questions about just kind of a wrap up. Was there anything that we didn't ask that you really want addressed? That's one of the last questions too. Another common question that we get during the process is if the nominees are going to be told who nominated them. As a practice, no, we don't share that information. I think the main reason is just the volume of applications that we get. People also, as Kata mentioned, that nomination process is really, really succinct. So somebody could be nominated multiple times by multiple people. We also can't just keep track of how many there are. You are also welcome to self-nominate. It doesn't mean a thing. We don't look at that. That just gives us your email address so that we can send you the long form. So the logistical reasons are why we don't share that information. What makes someone a good candidate for Top 40 Under 40? It's probably something we'll be talking about throughout the entirety of this presentation. But again, somebody who has within their sphere, whether it's that industry, whether it's in the arts, an invention that they have, whatever it is that they're doing, they're really uniquely different and high achieving. And what they're doing is pushing the city of Calgary forward. Not necessarily the city of Calgary, the institution, but Calgary as a community. You have an impact on our city, on the recognition of our city. Again, year by year, it will always change who will be on the list. We have different judges every year. There are different things happening in the world, happening in Calgary every year. And there's also just different people applying every year. So there may be, you may be somebody who has applied a year before and you didn't get in. If you didn't get in, but you still meet the age requirements, apply again. Don't stop applying. There are so many factors that determine whether somebody will make it onto a short list. And speaking of that too, I guess I also want to highlight co-nominations. Whatever it is that you're working on, if you feel that you're working on that with another person or a group of people and that your application is more reflective if you're reflected together, you can also submit it as a co-nomination. In order to do that, there is a spot on the nominee acceptance form where you can put in who your co-nominee is. The thing is that each co-nominee just actually has to fill out a nominee acceptance form individually so that we can create that package for the judges. So you do have to put down that you are a co-nominee, who that person is, but that person also needs to fill out a form and identify you as their co-nominee. Does being nominated multiple times help my nominee? No. Again, you have broad networks of family, friends, colleagues, multiple people think you're great. So multiple people are going to nominate you and they may not even know that they're all nominating you. Again, all that does is give us your information so that we can send you the long form. If the person that you want to nominate lives outside of Calgary, can you still nominate them? You can still nominate them. Like Top 40 Under 40 is focused on Calgary. So the people that are selected, they do need to have a strong connection to Calgary. If they live outside of the city limits, they should work or volunteer in Calgary if that's the case. So we're thinking like Airdrie, for example, Cochrane, Okotoks. Another question we get is for people who have been nominated in the past, filled out the nominee acceptance form and weren't selected. So one question is, why do I have to fill it out again? Again, we don't go back into previous years to create a new judging package. So we just need you to fill it out again. We also will make minor adjustments to the form every year. So it's actually on the back end, a different form. It's like lives in a different part of SurveyMonkey. So in order to access your nomination for each year, you just have to fill out the nominee acceptance form for each year. Probably one of the most frequently asked questions we get, if you've already been on a top 40 list, can you be nominated again? You can be nominated again, but you can't get on the list again. So you may get nominated. You might even get a SurveyMonkey email with the nominee acceptance form, again, just because of the automatic processing of putting the emails in, but you can't make it onto the list again. We do check back against previous years.
The caveat there would be if you have been a top 40 under 40 in another place. So for example, if you've been part of Canada's top 40 under 40 program, or if you've been part of Avenue Edmonton or Edify's top 40 under 40 program, we don't consider that. It's only if you've been top 40 under 40 in Calgary and Avenue, or I think you would probably be over 40 by this point if you were in Calgary Magazine, but that's the one that we're looking for. So every once in a while we have somebody who's moved down from Edmonton and they were a top 40 in Edmonton. Those people can be considered again.
Another common question that we get is the nominee acceptance form. It asks if you consent to being contacted for more information. So at the end of the actual form where you put all of your contextual information about your top 40 application, we have a series of questions asking if you'd like to sign up for newsletters, if you'd like to receive information from us, further information. We do need that box selected. It's not that it will affect whether or not you make the short list, but that's what enables us to contact you about things like the gala, about other top 40 related materials and events. We also need that in order to be able to contact you about results and about keeping up with the top 40 progress. So we do need you to select yes on that. There are a couple questions here. I think I'll just address them right now. So Jordy asked, do the judges have a criteria? Do they have a set number of people from each field? We try to keep the judging panel pretty small. So like Kata mentioned at the beginning, we rely on top 40 alumni and we select people from a different sector. So somebody in finance, somebody in law, somebody in medicine, someone from the arts. We're not looking for multiple people in each one of those. It's a very great thing and almost like a volunteer thing that they're doing, giving us their time to review the application. So we want to make it as, succinct and easy for you, but also for them as possible. And then Jill asked a great question. Are the judges asked to identify conflicts of interest? Yeah, judges do. They have come to us before and said, hey, I have a conflict of interest, or I have a question. Is this a conflict? We do address those as they come up for sure. Can the responses be the same for co-nominees? Yep. You can have the same responses. Like, for example, if you're two founders of a company, a lot of your responses will be the same, especially when you're talking about the impact that either your product or service has made, or when you're giving us details like numbers or financials. Naturally, you're probably just going to do copy and paste. But you do have the opportunity in the form, especially at the first question, your elevator pitch, and the last question, just the wrap-up question, you do have that opportunity to give individual answers. Regardless of if it's exactly the same or not, we bring both of those together and put it as one package to show the judges. Jordy says, sorry, meant out of the 40, not the judges. Oh, okay. So do we have a set criteria of people on the top 40 shortlist that need to be in each industry or area? We don't have a set criteria. Again, the list changes year to year based on who applies and what's happening, what kind of work they're doing. We're really trying to evaluate each individual like on the merit of what it is, not really trying to fill any boxes of let's have like 5 finance, 5 arts, 5 science. If there are more people that own or co-founded a company, but the other person is not being nominated due to age, is that okay? Yeah, that's totally okay. That's fine too. You can still say like, I am a co-founder of a company with somebody who is not going to be putting in a co-nominee because they're not of the age. That's totally okay. Another common question we get, I think we kind of addressed this at the beginning, when will I find out if I've been selected? So again, like it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of nominees. So we can't let everybody know that they haven't been selected, but we do get in touch with the people that are selected to start scheduling the photo shoots and writing the stories. This happens obviously before the issue is published. So around summertime, we don't really like to give a specific date because it also depends on the judges' schedules too. So we work a lot around the judges' schedules and when they're able to individually look at each nominee form and then also come together to do a big meeting with the editorial team.
I'll just jump in there and just add, this year we are adding to the process that we will let people know if they were unsuccessful near the end of August.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, we have another question here. Can you see all the questions in SurveyMonkey at once to prepare the answers, or can you only see them when you respond? So you can see all the questions at once. Actually, on the Top 40 Under 40 FAQ site, you can see all of the questions. I also have a PDF of the nominee acceptance form that I can probably just share with the recording and transcripts after, so everybody can have a copy of that. Okay, so what happens if you have been selected? Amazing, congratulations, you've been selected. You're going to be contacted by a few people from Avenue, photographers, from a writer, probably from an editor as well. You'll be receiving different pieces of information and having things scheduled like the photo shoot and the interview, and also talking about your availability because we'll ask if you'll come to the event. Can you tell everybody? No, you cannot. That's the one thing that we get asked. we definitely understand that you want to share the information right away, but it is something we want to keep a secret and make the reveal when the magazine comes out the biggest that we possibly can. So as we get closer to the magazine being published and to the event date, you'll start to hear from us, and we'll say, please share this information, with your group that would like to come to the event, because we're happy to make sure that they have tickets, make those arrangements. But the kind of like big public announcements, we want to save them for the day of the launch. And lastly, I think this is probably an important one to highlight. If you're selected, can you be disqualified? Yes, there are ways that you can be disqualified. It doesn't happen very often, but just small things like, please tell us your correct age and birth date. I think that's like the number one thing. We do also, and it says this on the website, we do reserve the right to remove anyone at our discretion, including but not limited to, you can't make yourself available for the interview and for the photography if any information is false that was submitted in the nomination package that the judges evaluated. If it's not accurate, if employment details change. It's very, very rare that this happens, but we do have that in there just so you know, like things can change last minute. Just keep us updated though. If things do change, just keep in contact with us. It just makes it easier for everyone. And that's kind of it for the frequently asked questions that we have on the website. In terms of rules and regulations, pretty general. The age rule is probably the number one thing. Just be over 18, under 40 for November 1st, 2025. Excuse me. And the nominations, so being nominated, like Kata mentioned, they're due 11:59 p.m. on March 31st. This long form that we're talking about today, the nominee acceptance form, that's due April 11th, 11:59 p.m. as well. With that, it is a firm deadline, but again, keep in touch. If something happens and you clicked save and it didn't and your computer crashed, let us know. We can't always say that there is something that we can do, but again, we've had a year where a whole bunch of nominee acceptance forms went into spam. People couldn't get them out of their spam. We had to make some adjustments. Just keep in touch with us so we can see how we can help you. We want people to be able to have the opportunity to get their nominee forms in. I think that's mostly it for FAQ. Kata, was there anything I missed that we should add?
I think that's mostly it. We'll just ask people if they have any questions. I think the only other rules, for the most part, the other rules don't affect too many people. Like you can't be the cohabitant of one of the Avenue staff, but we pretty much know who those folks are. So, there's things like that, but they don't come up very often. And yeah, it's good to familiarize yourself. I think the really big one that stumbles people a lot is you have to be under 40 on November 1st. So it's not under 40 when you got nominated or under 40 when you filled in the form. It's under 40 on November 1st, 2025. And that's because it is a magazine. It goes out on the 1st of November, and our readers expect people to be under 40 on that date. They don't really care about the nomination process or all the stuff that we go through. In terms of the references, you don't need reference letters. You just need to provide a phone number. I believe it asks for an email address as well. And it's for us to contact those people. So they don't have to prepare anything. It's not super formal. Again, we're trying to make the process as easy as possible for everybody while also giving us the greatest depth of information that our judges can get. What should they know if they get a call? Again, usually it's stuff that they know, right? We're going to ask them, you're the work reference. Does this person do what they said that they do in their application? If it's the community or volunteer reference, this person says they do these things. Do they do those things? That's pretty much usually what we're asking. And we also ask the kind of throwaway question, do you think they should be on the top 40 under 40 list? If your reference doesn't think you should be a top 40, we probably won't think you should be a top 40 either. I think it asks for 2 references. Sometimes people put the same person in for both spaces, depending on what their job is. Like a lot of people, they're really being nominated either for their work or for their community contribution, not for both. A lot of candidates are well-rounded and have both those kind of areas of life, but there isn't something that says you can't be eligible if your main contribution is in one area or the other rather than both. All right, Sirangasha, do you want to take us through the form a little bit, question by question?
Yeah, let's do that. And let me see, I've got the PDF here as well. So let me see if I can possibly share that. I might not be able to because I just got this, but I will be sharing it with everyone afterwards with the recording. There we go. Okay, so we won't spend a lot of time going through the beginning of the form because a lot of it is demographic information. Let us know that you meet the age requirements, that you consent to providing an image of government issued ID, again, so that we can verify your birth date and your age, that you're a resident of Calgary and the surrounding area.
Sirangasha, could you zoom in any bit?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Close the tools on the side so that we can get this as
Yeah.
big as possible.
How's this? Oh, that might be too big for me. How's this?
That's perfect.
Okay. So just quickly, again, this demographic information, this is helping to inform us, the editors and people that are coordinating the program. This is not used in your nomination package that goes to the judges. So we're asking for demographics, for pronouns. Pronouns we do actually use because we need to know how to refer to you. We won't refer to you by first and last name every single time we write about you in the story. So we do need your pronouns. You will have a spot here, again, if you want to have this as a co-nominee, to list your co-nominees. This is a text box, so if you have a group of 3, for example, just feel free to write them all in, first and last name, comma, email address. You can fit everybody in there. Your contact information, again, pretty self-explanatory. This one kind of trips people up. If you've ever used another name, please enter it here. That's for us to know while we're doing the reference checks as well. We'll do things like a Google search. We might want to look at your LinkedIn. If you have a maiden name, if you've had a different name, an abbreviation, let us know. For example, my first name is Sirangasha. My last name's Liba, but I don't use it on my byline. So sometimes I need to let people know, like, this is the full name. Here's how to search for me to find out everything you need to know.
It's also sometimes used by our sponsors when they want to, if they're looking for whether you're an alumni of theirs, so with the universities, and if you have a maiden name that you went to university under, they're just going to look for that. And if we have that information, it helps those groups a lot.
And Andrew just put a question into the chat. Will the references get a form email or a live person? They get a live person. That's us. So we'll be calling and email. We do prefer to do reference checks over the phone when we can, but we totally understand that people are busy. So that's why we ask for the phone and the email address. Best way to contact them, what works for them. Oh, actually, I should make a note of this question. So question 13, have you ever had a criminal conviction? If yes, please provide more info. This question does not automatically disqualify you. So feel free to share what you need to share. But again, when we do reference checks, if something comes up and we're like, is this that person? A lot of times there's common names too. It's just like for ease of us to know and to get through the paperwork quickly. So we start off with a question here about your elevator pitch. It's kind of like in a nutshell, tell us why you should be included in Avenue's Top 40 Under 40. Don't stress too much about this because there are a ton of questions later on where you get to go into detail. This helps us kind of orient ourselves when we're starting out by reading your package. It gives us a sense of, okay, who is this person? And maybe what can I expect to read about in the rest of the questions?
One thing to note on that particular question is often people tell us why it would make them happy to be on the list. This is not really what we're looking for. We're not looking for like, why do you want to be on the list? It's why should the most succinct version of why the judges should put you on the list. What's the most impressive thing about you?
And it in 100 words or less, it can often be the hardest question to answer. You may want to go through the form and answer the other questions first. I mean, I am a writer and I'm terrible at writing about myself. Sometimes I kind of have to like dig through everything and be like, oh, okay, if I had to market myself, this is what I would say. But it takes a little bit of thinking. So you can always come back to it afterwards. Briefly explain your company's primary business. So if you're an artist, athlete, or sole proprietor, consider your body of work your primary business and explain it here. So if you don't actually have a company that you own, that's okay. We would just want to get a sense of what it is that you're doing, whether that's your art, your business, your athletics, whatever industry you're in. It kind of explains to us, what is it? What do we need to know? What do you actually do in your work role? So a big thing here is that the judges won't be familiar with everyone's industry, so try to avoid jargon. The editors also, we also aren't familiar with every industry, and depending on the length, we have to do some editing for clarity. So just try to be as plain speaking as possible. It might feel awkward to do that, but it really just helps everybody move the process along if we can avoid jargon.
The other element here is that a lot of times people assume that the name of their role explains their role, but it often doesn't to somebody who works outside of your industry. So if you're the vice president advancement, yes, if I worked at your place of work, I might know what that meant. But if I'm a judge who's just reading this for the first time, I might have no idea what you actually do day to day and what your responsibilities in that role are. Same with if you're, the co-founder or a proprietor or anything like that. A lot of times assume that all the judges have no idea what your business is or your industry. They've never heard of you, and they've maybe never even heard of the entire industry that you're part of.
Yeah, that's a great point. So then we do get into the questions about the impact. So what impact have you made within your field in this role? Here we are looking for as many specifics as you can give to us in this nominee acceptance form. So for example, growth numbers, publications or shows, the start of groups or businesses, any sort of specifics, dates, numbers that you can provide that really helps contextualize your form for us and for the judges as well. We do have a tip here that we ask that you try to avoid using percentages. Instead, provide specific absolute numbers when possible. And again, another note, if you are going to include information that actually can't be published, please note that in your response. It may be that you can share it with us because it shows your impact, but we can't actually publish it in print. That's fine. Just make sure you make a note in there saying this cannot be published. And we're going through these manually, so we do flag that right away. This is where we ask for your first reference. So to provide a name and phone number for a reference at your current workplace. And again, if you don't have a workplace per se, that can just be a peer in your field. This is somebody who can just vouch for what you've just told us about what you do, where you work, the impact that you've made, and somebody who can speak to that. Then we ask for you to describe your career accomplishments. So including the length of time you've been in various roles, if applicable. Sometimes these questions might start to sound very similar. So don't be worried again if you kind of have to go through the form a few times before you submit. But we're looking for specific highlights, maybe awards, maybe like a milestone that you hit, goals that you achieved. And again, as many specifics as you can provide for us. We do like to see the length of time that you've been somewhere. So let's say I was here for 5 years and in that time I did X, Y, and Z. That would be an example of a very clear, concise way to word that answer. Did you want to add anything there, Kata?
I just wanted to respond to, I believe it's Dalmy. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. The question regarding how far back to go with your community involvement. It really depends on you. It's so hard to give specifics on some of these because we have such a huge range of different experiences in our top 40s. So for example, if you've been volunteering with the food bank since you were 11 years old, put that in. Like if it's been a consistent thing, you're like, this is the thing that I've always cared about. That tells us something really interesting about you. But you don't need to put your volunteer time from when you were 11 if there's not really a story. If it's like, well, I did 5 hours here that year and then 10. If there's nothing significant about it, don't put it in. So it's hard to say without knowing your specific circumstances, but certainly if we have time at the end and you want to talk about what your specific concern is, we can stay on, or you can email Searing Asha or I. It's finding that balance, right, between giving too much information that's not relevant, but making sure that you're giving the judges all the relevant information about your experience. So it's hard to give a definitive answer of like, this is the date that you should start from. But at the same time, it is really challenging for nominees to know, okay, what's my story? That's kind of what we're asking you to do within this form, is tell us what your story is, and we'll decide if it's a good story for the top 40 under 40 package.
And that's often too something that I think nominees struggle with, and you kind of have to embrace just for this moment that you're filling out the form, is you really are like marketing your story. Like, this is the time to gas yourself up. Like, tell us everything. If it's like a wow moment that if you heard this sentence coming out of someone else's mouth and it's about you, put it in there. Like, do not hold back. We think that you're great. It might feel weird to do so, but tell us how great that you are. So if it feels noteworthy, put it in. I will just add on too, since we're talking about that and we're at that question on the forum as well, and we're talking about community and industry contributions, again, for specifics. So if there's a certain number of hours you volunteered for, if there's a certain amount of money raised or donated, if you are able to share that information, it's a good time to put it in there. And then again, we ask for another reference. This is more of volunteer, community, character reference. Again, sometimes it might be the same person that you provided earlier on. Other times it might be someone different. That's in that spot there. Describe any awards or honors you've received for your career or community work. Again, we're keeping the character limits really low here on purpose. So don't feel that you have to be as narrative in some of these questions. And this is a good example. A lot of times people will just do a bullet point. In this year, I won this for X, like A, B, C. And that's perfect. That's the way that you'll get the most amount of information in for a question like this, when we're just asking, just tell us what the awards and honors are. Again, for question 23, I would say that also applies. Please list all post-secondary institutions, the names of the programs you've attended, including those where a diploma or degree was not granted. Again, bullet points, and to Kata's earlier point, sometimes we use this for sponsors and for people who are involved from post-secondary institutions if they want to reach out to you, or if there is another way to share your story. And then question 24 and 25. So these are kind of like the wrap-up questions. Describe how you've made a difference in or raised the profile of Calgary, and provide any other info that the judges should know in considering you for top 40 under 40. So I would say, again, these two questions, and probably question 1, the elevator pitch, you might want to think on, or you might want to save to the end and do the middle questions first, where you have to actually go through your own history, go through the things that you've done, that you've won, all of the specifics, and then it might help you answer that first question and these two last questions as well. Again, like question 24 specifically, we've focused a lot on what you've done, how you've innovated and furthered your work and your industry. How does that contribute now to the community of Calgary? What impact is that having on Calgary? And then the last question, any other info that either we didn't ask or you think the judges should consider, you didn't feel fit in another part of the form, we want you to put it in there too. Again, in these questions, you could do bullet points, you could be narrative. It totally depends on how you're feeling at that point. And then the form just wraps up, again, asking if you'd like to receive information. Please do select yes for this. Otherwise, we can't give you information about the events and about the gala for Top 40. And then for the other questions, it's just asking if you would like to receive Avenue's newsletters, if you want to receive info about our events and other promotions. Question 29 is mandatory, and we actually only have the yes box, so please select it.
So the earlier one that asked if you want to get information, you don't have to select yes on any of these.
No, sorry, you just have to select something on it is what I meant.
Yeah. And then the final one that asks, by completing the form, I agree to abide by the rules and regulations. And if you don't agree, then we are not going to consider you. You won't be part of the form. So this is basically like I accept the terms, checkbox, legalese stuff. I think the big thing here is really just thinking about, so the thing I wanted to mention here is we don't look at these answers specifically other than number 29. Did you agree to be part of the process, but we don't look and say like, oh, this person didn't sign up for the newsletters, so they're not eligible. That's like not ever part of the consideration. I know we've had that question in the past. We basically don't have the time to do that. So that's not something that we look at. Similarly, I think Asha had mentioned before with the demographic information, that's for us to know if we're reaching out across Calgary, who are the communities that we're reaching into, and for us to have a sense of like, are we doing a good job reaching out across Calgary, rather than any information that goes to the judges in terms of like them trying to decide, you know, who's going to be on the list. It's not part of the judging process. It's just for our internal understanding of who we're reaching out to. There was a question about the awards. So I think Asha, you had said to put career awards into the career accomplishments part, but then later there's a question specifically about awards. So again, it's kind of hard to say. It kind of depends. There's some fields that give a lot of awards, and those are they sometimes will put those answers in both spots. But for the most part, most people, I would say, put any awards that you've received into that awards section. I do want to emphasize as well, if you haven't received any awards, that doesn't mean you're not going to be considered. It's certainly not something that, you know, everybody on the list has already gotten 17 different awards. Again, it kind of depends on the field. Like some fields of work are just really awards heavy, and some just aren't. So it's again, just something that helps the judges get a feeling for each candidate rather than something that's mandatory for you to have on your list.
It also helps to, on our side for the reference checks as well. Like, oh, well, we could look up, you know, this award list, like they have a web page. We can take a look. Maybe there's already some info about you on there that helps us with the reference checks too.
Dalmi asks, is it okay to write about each other instead of yourself if you're being co-nominated? Absolutely. Whatever way is going to make it more comfortable for you to write a really strong application, that's totally okay. I will say too, we sometimes get nomination forms where some people write them in the first person, some people write them in the third person, sometimes somebody else has helped write them. That's not really something that the judges spend too much time overthinking. They're just looking at the content. They're not looking at like, do you think this person wrote it themselves? It's like, it doesn't matter. So I guess now that we wanted to talk a little bit about what are the most common problems and errors that we see in nominations, or more so, things that people forget or they make mistakes with. So I think we're done with the form, but if there's any questions that people had about any of the specific questions before we jump into those kind of more general things, we'll jump into those now. Okay, so I think the biggest kind of problems that we see, the most common problems that we see are people not providing specifics. So they'll say things like, I grew my company. Well, how much did you grow your company? And this can be challenging, right? You want to put your best foot forward. And again, you want to give the judges information that helps them actually understand. So we would recommend against, if that's the type of thing that's in your form and is part of your accomplishment, we would recommend against saying a percentage without giving some absolutes. Because for example, if you say, we doubled our revenue in the first 5 years. Well, we have no idea if that's from $1 million to $2 million, or if that's from $20 to $40. So again, it's give us something that's concrete, and revenue and dollars aren't always the way that you've measured your own success. So do consider the way that you've measured your success. Maybe it's we've grown to serve 50 clients in our first 2 years, or we've grown from 2 employees to 30 employees. Again, it really depends on the industry, because revenue itself can be really misleading if we're looking at it and we're like, well, you made $1 million in revenue, but you lost 500,000. That's maybe not good odds. Similarly, you know, it's hard to tell from outside how much of that was the cost of goods sold and how much of that was money that went into the business itself. So again, the information, give us the information that helps us understand your accomplishments. again, it's that piece where you want to give specifics as much as you can to the judges so that they can understand what you've done. You don't want to give information that's specific but may be misleading, or where the judges may be like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take away from this. The other thing that we see people do a lot is provide information that doesn't show their individual accomplishment. So this one's really tough because you want to, especially if you're a co-nominee, you need to be able to show how, as a group or as an individual, you moved things forward. And at the same time, we know that no one does things on their own. We know that all accomplishments are at some level group accomplishments, but we need to see that the individual or the two people who are being nominated, they did something. They moved the company forward, or they moved the organization in a new direction. Their particular work moved the needle in some way. So that's the other thing and some fields are particularly challenging for this. Some fields do not lend themselves well to individual accomplishment. And so that can be a little bit of a challenge. I think the other thing to keep in mind is, again, like Searing Asha said, the point of this is kind of to show off a little bit. Like, the whole point of it is to be like, I did something that's worthy of recognition. I did something kind of amazing. And it's not to say that wasn't part of a larger piece, but to say, this is how I move things forward. I think at the end of the day, what the judges are primarily looking for is impressive people with impressive stories. And in different areas of accomplishment, what's impressive can be very different. So it's really hard to say, do it this particular way, because there's so many different fields and so many different people. You are going to be judged primarily on what is in that nomination form. That's really all the judges have to go on. So, that's the primary thing is write the best piece that you can that puts your best foot forward, and cross your fingers. Because it is kind of one of those things that's a little bit like the question about, like, you don't have to outrun the lion. We're picking 40. We're picking 40 every year. You don't have to be the first one. You're just trying to get into the 40. But at the same time, it's hard because every year we get our judges to our judges from the previous top 40s, and they will often say, if these had been the other nominees, I wouldn't have made it on the list. And so it is, there's a lot of really amazing people doing really amazing things in Calgary. And I think the one of the things that really helps when you're filling out this nomination is somebody thought you were really amazing and thought you should fill out this form and get onto this list. Somebody out there thinks you're really pretty fantastic. So when you're trying to get up the courage to show off, keep that person, whoever they are, in mind. So that's basically it. Again, I think that, the one other thing that we see people do wrong, and which will derail everything, is if you lie. So if we find a lie in your information, if we, if we follow up on something with your reference, or if we Google search you and the information that we find does not match what you've told us, we don't have time to come back to you and say, hey, was this a mistake? You're just pretty much out of the running. So that would be the other. It always surprises me what people will bother lying about. But I really would strongly recommend against it.
I think I would also just add on the flip side, filling out this form can be a time-intensive process. But on the flip side, if you don't fill it out and say, hey, just check out this news article that was written about me, somebody already did a huge long profile, and then you don't fill out the questions, I mean, that's also not fair to all the people that did fill out the questions. And we want you to tell us your story. And actually, on that note, please do not include hyperlinks into the forms, because we actually often print these out for the judges. So when we're not asking them to go to different websites as well. We're asking them just to look at the form.
Yeah, and that's, we get asked that a lot about reference letters. Please don't include reference letters. Don't link to your LinkedIn. Don't give us a, we don't typically ask for your company's website. Any of that stuff, we will not link to outside sources for our judges. We want to make sure that we're containing what we're asking them to do. So are there any other questions, either generally about the form or the process, or about any specifics that people have that they would like to ask questions about? Well, we thank you all for attending and wish you the very best of luck. If you do have any follow-up questions with us, the contact information for both myself and Searing Asha were in the chat. Searing Asha, if you could just maybe put that into the chat again. Perfect, that's great. Do feel free to reach out to us. We do sometimes take a little while to get back to people. So don't, if you send me an email at 10 p.m. on April 11th, I probably will not get back to you in time. But please do let us know if there's anything that we can help you with. In terms of the recording and the PDF, once we get those ready, we're going to have those put onto the Top 40 Under 40 website. We'll also put those out through LinkedIn, but you have our contact information. If you don't find them in the next few days, we'll probably give us 2 days to get those up. And if you don't see those, or if you need something before then, please do just reach out. We're happy to help. As Searing Asha said, we really just want everybody to fill out the best forms and have the best opportunity to be considered by our judges. All right, well, thank you again, especially to Mount Royal University, as well as the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, Oxford Properties Group, Global Television, and Sherco, who are our sponsors for Avenue Magazine's Top 40 Under 40 for class of 2025. And thank you all for attending, and hopefully this has been helpful, and good luck with your Top 40 Under 40 nominations.
Thanks, everyone.